Hi, Dina.
Hi, Fiona. How are you?
I am doing well on this snowy day, as you can see here.
It's beautiful. I hope you're enjoying it.
Absolutely. It's a good, as you would say, I think it's a good time to go play.
Absolutely. Always a good
Yeah.
opportunity. I love how you think.
And we're here today to talk about adult misconceptions of play. So it seems like a good day to do it when it's often children that get sent out in the snow and adults don't take the time to have fun.
Yes, we should take the opportunity to dive in.
That's and dive in literally and figuratively today.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Dina, round glass, play is one of the pedagogies that we incorporate into our design at the beginning stages.
Mhm.
Tell us what's play's value and how important play is for our well-being.
Well, play is everything, really, isn't it? We are social animals, and as such, we learn through play how we relate with ourselves, with all around us, ever since we are born. And if play is how we relate to ourselves and others, we rely on relationships for our well being. So if play is central for relationships, then play is key for well being. We see this even in how animals relate to each other. Have you seen cubs play and how their play is spontaneous and inherent and a joyful experience every time? It's really like play takes us to a different dimension, and we go beyond our routine, which is important, and we will go into it later. But it really drives us away from rigidity and away from strict control, and we're able to take perspective. So when we play and learn, really play takes away the tone of seriousness and sometimes imposition from a classic education where we sit and take notes and maybe just take dictation and do this passively. So for learning to really acquire a different sense, one that we actually care about, uh, and that can contribute to well-being, we can also use play to learn, because we will learn a lot better.
So Dina, from what you're saying, it sounds like children play to sort of learn how to be adults or to take on different roles and to problem solve. And adults play so that they can hold on to some of those childlike qualities of being open and not rigid and willing to, to move with what's happening instead of what you might think is the answer for something that you're working on. That's a pretty playful way to think about play. So, and you started talking about learning and children and how they learn best, and that you've mentioned the social aspect of it,
Mhm.
and being flexible.
Yes,
Um, Tell us a little bit also about children learning through unstructured play.
yes, yes. Thank you. Perhaps I can start by reflecting on the neuroscience behind play. Play is our brain's favorite way of learning, and the parts of the brain that most develop in the early years are the ones that respond to active experiences. So play is very, very much the case. But even as, not only for early ages, even as children move up through the early grades and the early years, research shows that play continues to have an impact, and actually throughout life. In elementary school principals have reported that recess, for example, has an incredible positive impact on academic performance. And also, students are more focused after recess. Play is considered to be integral to the academic environment for both the social, emotional, and academic development, which, by the way, are not they're not in silos. And this is recorded by the American Academy of Pediatrics. So play has these characteristics where it allows for children and for human players to feel recognized, where they start to develop also this social emotional aspect from as early on as you can think of, where we participate, where we have an active participation that also awakens and unleashes curiosity. So reflecting on the 5 characteristics of learning through play that Lego Foundation has researched about, meaning it's joyful, it's meaningful, it's iterative, it's socially engaging, and it really is. For example, let's take joyful, no, the activities where we enjoy practicing, no. So this becomes something that's attractive, and if it's fun, if it's not fun, I don't want to participate. And it's socially iterative because we also enjoy learning and interacting with others and speaking with others and having this dialogue. So if it has a social component that implies this engagement, then there are lots of different agreements that you can reach and that you can have with a more abstract part, no? Like you can relate with something that you know, and that you can relate to something that you're learning from your everyday life. So it almost reminds me like of my first algebra class, no? A plus B equals X. And so what are you talking about? No, if it doesn't stick to anything that you've seen before, it can be a context that doesn't make sense. But in incorporating play can really help to connect with something that you already know, instead of like a more classic education where it's like, this is what it is, and just get it right. No, if there's a check or there's a cross, and that's it. But when you make it interactive, where kids are able to generate hypotheses and experiment and do trial and error, which is that one characteristic, iteration from that I was missing. The knowledge is being built based on experiences. And so there are no right or wrong answers, but more like the process where you're building learning through experimentation.
So Dina, so you're saying that when teachers use play to engage the mental models that are, or the background knowledge that children already have in a playful way, they're better able to then take new knowledge and add it into the model that they already have for whatever the concept is. So in the example that you gave, A plus B equals X, that you can build that into a game of playing shop, or you could build that into a game of I can't go beyond, isn't this terrible? Shop. I'm sure there are other things.
Yes, I mean, you can do really anything. I mean, depends, and that's a very good question also. As much as we can be open and attuned with that of children's interests, then we can really be able to thread, to weave through, right? So for example, if my 6-year-old is very interested in insects and arachnids, and so I might use this multiple universes of interest to weave them in she's starting to do add additions and and subtraction. And so it's really interesting to weave in whatever you know that your children are interested in. And so that is also something very playful. Now, you were talking
That brings
about
joy as well, right?
it brings joy, it is socially interactive, it can be iterative, it is meaningful because it's something that they are they know and they relate to and they're passionate about, and it literally it makes sense to them. So it's that way of really going beyond the memorization, but having a more holistic learning experience. Yes. So to your question of and this is a very good maybe segue to answer your question of unstructured play, and again I would maybe start by giving a context of the spectrum of play, because there are many ways of playing, and so I want to maybe highlight 4, which is a direct instruction, the play with rules, guided play, and also free play or unstructured play. So this unstructured play is basically what we adults usually try to direct, and it's really hard for us to give freedom for kids to decide. But this kind of play really has to do with kids' participation, and so it's absolutely key. Maybe I can give a brief overview of each one of them. So, for example, depending on the needs that you're trying to develop, or the skills, or the relationship that you're trying to develop, you can use different kind of games. So maybe when we want to develop self-regulation for kids, then you might use a direct instruction where you say, okay, so pay a lot of attention because we're going to do this origami figure. So you need to follow these instructions, and they need to be followed exactly like that so that you can have that figure, right? And it can be so much fun doing an origami where the adult is saying, what is it that you're going to do and what's the technique, and so that children follow the instructions. But it's also really, so this is another kind of game. It's the games with rules where the rules are followed, but also kids identify which is the best strategy to move within those rules, right? So the participation of children is different. And then maybe the one kind of play that is less known is like guided play, which, by the way, has been identified as one of the most successful ways of learning. For example, in the school context. I will go more on that in a moment. But in the guided play is like, here's a challenge, you get organized to solve this, and so kids get together, they establish a dialogue, they listen to each other, they're taken into consideration, and they generate strategies where they can also come up with different solutions. So this is fantastic, no? Because the challenge is posed by the adult, and then the solutions are identified by the kids. And finally, there's a free play or unstructured play, and which is most important is that we identify all these possibilities, because we like to put everything in boxes. So there's something hopefully useful. These are the limits of one, and these are the limits of the other. But really, this spectrum of games can also be combined. So you can start with a direct instruction, and then say, we're going to do a puppy origami. And then you can mix it with a moment of free play right after. So how many dogs do you have? Okay, let's play that we're a group of puppies. And so you decide what's going to happen next. No, so you start in one kind of play and then you finish in a different one, where there's also, you can weave in like a challenge, and then this challenge can become into something that has to do with games with rules, and you can move like that throughout the spectrum and make the most of each one of the possibilities, because our brains is built based, as we said, in experiences, and so our brains are thirsty for experiences, and when we move throughout this play spectrum, we're allowing for the richest possibilities to come out, each one with different characteristics and practicing different skills, and so this is something now
and so the teacher, as a teacher, or as an adult, and since we're talking about adult misconceptions here too, your play is a tool, and there's
absolutely.
a lot of deep thought about which type of play would best support the child in the moment, or the group of children in the moment. And it sounds like so much of this for teachers is really listening to children and noticing when they need a moment of unstructured play, knowing that for this concept, it's better for them to start off with unstructured and move to structured, or vice versa. So it's really just a lot of intentionality on the part of the teacher.
A lot of intentionality and a lot of also time and energy, I think, well invested, because then the payoff is just unlimited, and definitely some important challenges for adults that I would like to dive into in a moment, but just so that we are clear, free play really has, or unstructured play is really about the roles and the autonomy with which the participants take their own decisions in their own game, where their interest, their imagination, their creativity is their guide. And as you were saying, like the role of adults, this is where we need to work on. One of the ways that we need to work on the resistance of adults to, as you say, to let go, and not want to guide it, not want to influence, and to say, okay, here is this so that you play with this, and no, just play with what you have and play what you want to play. And so this is really a challenge, I think, for many adults, at least, to start to perhaps trust more the process, trust more the process of this development that is so key, so that you can give the autonomy to participants, and that it's really where kids start developing skills for decision making, for identifying their social emotional skills, like they notice when they team up with others, or how is it that they make decisions, and if they are taking into consideration other participants or not. And so you can strengthen so many different skills and values with free play, but it also allows you to identify many other aspects that have the potential to develop because you are behaving freely. No, there are no rules. And I love there's a quote by Francesco Tonucci, who's a Ashoka fellow. He's a very renowned personality who built a global model which gives children autonomy and puts them at the center of decisions as cities develop. And he says something like, a good toy is one that, without being anything concrete, can be everything. And I think that is the perfect definition with the unstructured play. Is a good playful moment is that without being anything concrete, that can be everything. So
I love that, Dina, and I get that analogy is beautiful. And it's the boxes that children play with that had the toys in them.
yeah, exactly.
And so you're saying that you want to give this space with unstructured play for kids to develop games and ideas themselves. And it reminds me that when I was a child, that sometimes it was in play that I was grappling with the hardest things, that it was unstructured play where you might, you create an argument because you're trying to figure out what happened with my friends over there, at some, and you're replaying or developing, responses in that playful moment without even knowing it. Like that's you're sort of rehashing or thinking ahead to what you could do. And then as adults, if you're just watching, you're seeing what kids are thinking about to be able to use that for other lessons at other times potentially. So really, really powerful. What else should adults know about children's games?
Well, I think one aspect is on the adult misconceptions. I think we should know, we should be aware of this. We can go into that in a moment. But in terms of what can we know, what can we learn about games from children is, first, I would say we should know that not only children need to know that we were that also we were kids once, and we needed to play. We still do. I think it's very important to know that, as we were saying, no, the spectrum of play is versatile, and it opens really all possibilities. That kids need time and space to have their games, and that we can also participate. And it's very important, depending also on the stage, and also to be sensitive about how and when do we chime in. So it is important that we participate, and it's also important that we preserve that space. So in order to preserve that space, I think sometimes also leaving kids to finish, so their time to finish their games, because so many times, and I've been there, we're pressured by time, right? And if we think for a moment and we really have that respectful vision towards kids, is how frustrating do you think it is to be in the middle of this imaginary amazing moment, space, that game that you created, and having to leave immediately because your parents need to leave? No, so it's almost a matter of respect, really. It's a very essential. So they have invested their creativity, their energy, their time, their love, and it means something to them. So I think we need to understand how important that play is, and that sometimes being flexible, whenever possible, being flexible, I think helps a lot to say, okay, 5 or 10 minutes will not make a difference, but for them it really will. No, so also give a bit of warning if we can have, like, okay, we'll wrap up in 2 minutes, or a couple of times be able to prepare them. So also I think we are very much friends of routine. As adults, we need to get things done, and routine is the enemy of chaos. So routine is comforting for us adults, and play is designed not to be routine. So it's really designed to move us out of that routine. So, and it can really do that very well. So not everything can be process and outcome, right? That's why we like routine, and it's frankly helpful. It gives us structure and a sense of control in this chaotic world. But if you overdo that, you miss the opportunity to grow and develop. So I would very much like to share that adults can, if adults know the how to truly benefit from play, it means that children can be given ample opportunity for unstructured playtime, no? So, which means like at least children should receive 1 hour every day in a safe environment to create their own enjoyment, their own rules, their own experiences, and when they are leading their own free time play, this can also help children to internalize what they're taught about the world. No, play is really one of the main channels to consolidate learning. There's a woman that I admire very much. She's a play expert as well, and she's Kathy Hirsch-Pasek, and she says that playtime should not just happen outside of school or just at recess, but should also be a necessary part of teaching and learning, which of course I'm very much convinced. So it's like supporting the most beneficial play activities can also, as you were saying, it takes time, it takes training and planning. And so play can be looked as a way to learn within schools and to see that spectrum of play that we're saying, ranging from free play, where adults sometimes should get, she says, adults should get out of the way, not to direct instructions, where adults can set the agenda. So it's in that middle of the spectrum that we were saying, where the guided play would be like the middle of the spectrum, and where you have a learning goal in mind, and it has perhaps the most potential for young children if you want to teach engineering concepts. No, adults can share how like open-ended questions about their efforts, setting an activity, a goal, or to foster like the development of mathematical concepts. You can draw a number like on the ground and ask children to jump and then to compare their distance. Or some research also shows that children can learn just as much, if not more, through guided play experiences like these ones than they would in a less active way. So an added benefit to increasing play-based learning in classrooms is that active and engaging learning this can lead into deeper and more permanent learning.
Well, I could tell you that this often you see it in early childhood, and then as children get older, it sometimes disappears. My husband teaches in 7th grade social studies, and he had his students do a simulation game for it was U.S. history for the first 10 amendments, and they
wow.
Simulations, so they're online, and there was a point score, and what they had to do, they were lawyers, so they had a case come up and they had to decide if it was constitutional or unconstitutional and why, and then you got points for for dismissing cases and for taking on cases and so forth. So they did it and they learned a lot, and the kids went home and did it again and again and again, trying to get better scores. And of course, and then when it came to like an assessment where they were able to apply that knowledge, they had retained it. And it was this magical and for beautiful experience. And for my husband, as far as being a teacher, he was just observing, right, and answering questions if they were asked, but otherwise just allowed to really play, and got the same results, and probably the kids remember it better than if it had been a more traditional approach to
That's
that
amazing.
same subject.
Good on your husband.
Yeah.
And probably we should ask him if he had also fun. No, like what was his experience? Because it's so important for not only to provide children with, or to be on the lookout of for children to have like a really good experience and a positive one, but also I think for children to have a good experience, adults around should also be having a good experience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So they should be seeing the joy from their teachers as well.
Absolutely.
So I think it's fair to say, Dina, at this point that you have established how play benefits children's well-being and learning. So why do you suppose some adults are resistant to the idea of incorporating play into learning?
Well, that's a great question. It's like a very big question because I think there's several reasons. First, we have this idea and the way that we present ourselves as a busy person and focused and achieving person, and play can often be considered an activity that is unproductive and even like a waste of time, no? Therefore, something that maybe is not associated with success. And so presenting yourself as a playful person might sound even frivolous. So in a classic education system, play has been really, I would say, even charged with prejudice and related to a hindrance and an inconvenience or an impediment for learning. So there's a series of misconceptions where learning, where play is associated with distraction, no? And kids should only repeat without questioning. And we also associate play with a childish behavior. So in general, we are designed, if you think about it, to behave like older people. For example, when you are 5, you want to behave like 8, and when you're 20, you want to behave like 28, and so on. There's also the misconception of play as something that only kids can do. And so if you do it as a grown-up, then again, you'll be acting childish or foolish. And so I think also there's in the same way a misconception in regards to social, cultural environments in which where our performance is normally understood and not considering play dynamics, no, as a fundamental part of like everyday life. So it almost causes like a disinterest and a disconnection between adults and play. So it's almost like a learned behavior to not play as you grow up, to resist play. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we face is that we need to overcome is this assumption that play is the opposite of work, no? That it takes away from learning and it creates an environment that is lacking seriousness, that is like keeping away from academic demands. So bringing up the importance of play in the midst of a world like we have, Fiona, all the challenges that we face in the 21st century feels almost like bringing up this play concept almost feels like being crazy. But I can state to the benefits of play. And I love this Brian Studosmith, this play theorist, who I think said it best. The opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression. And so really, play does not detract us from learning. It is learning. No, play does not diminish seriousness. It encourages a level of intrinsically motivated engagement that makes seriousness possible. So play does not distract from addressing like real challenges that we face, like mental illness, poverty, climate change, inequities, whatever you think, but it offers strategic approaches for precisely finding different solutions and designing student practices that are based on understanding of rituals and references and ways of taking different perspectives, and that frankly, I mean, play has survived evolution. So there's that's one thing. And then the other thing is like all these misconceptions, I think the system reiterates them, no? There's a study plan that needs to be achieved and expected learnings to be gained. So there's a graduate profile and there are many goals to achieve and there's little time to do it. So teachers and parents have a lot in their plate. And when it comes to responsibility, guess what? They are responsible. We are responsible for the results, right? So there's this continuous search for efficiency, and play is, as we said, usually perceived as the opposite of efficiency, because there's this notion of a waste of time. So that's what we
and really,
Yes.
really what that is, when we talk about time in that way, it's the way we approach it is almost teacher time, because there's no guarantee of learning.
Exactly.
If you run through a curriculum or run through concepts, there's only that you've covered it. Whereas with play, there's more time to go deep and to, as we started off saying, right, creating, connecting to what you already know, to create these richer mental models that help us to retain knowledge and understanding.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and it's true. We're very pressured by time. Teachers are super overwhelmed, and as our parents. However, precisely play can be a real vehicle, tool, friend to make the most of time, and to iterate on different ways to go about the things that we need to see happening.
Dina, we just have a little time left. So is there anything else that you'd like to share about play that could help to bust some of the misconceptions adults might still have about it?
Yes, there's a thought that I really think that helps me when I'm struggling as an adult in my relationship with play, although I love play. It's like to think of conquering your, when you're out of your comfort zone, and really to understand that this is where the learning really happens, when you're holding that space. So even if it feels like you don't know how to play, or you don't know how to intervene, or it feels silly, etc., I think it's really a great gift for yourself and for those around you to try to conquer it. And even think about your favorite game or what you most love to play as a kid, and try to link it with, if you want to be very efficient, also try to link it with which skills did you learn as a kid when you played your favorite game, and think if you would be the same person that you are now if you hadn't played as a child all those games. So think of all the potential that exists in using learning through play, and learning through play for holistic well-being. Without play, we are only living half of our lives, if not less, because you're not using your full potential. So I hope you can dive into that space, and that you can be able to hold it, conquer it, and mostly enjoy it.
Oh, what a beautiful end there, Dina. Thank you for that. And for everyone watching, know that Dina has curated incredible resources that will support you in learning more about the importance of play, and also that there are activities to get you jump started in using play as a beautiful approach to learning. Dina, thank you once again for your wise and words and expertise on play. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. See you soon.
Bye.